Time for another Q&A. So back, I think it was like 10,000 subscribers. I said I would do another Q&A when we got to like 50,000, I think it was, and we are finally here. And to be honest, I just said that thinking that we would probably never get to 50,000, but here we are. So we have arrived at 50K. We're gonna do a question time. We got some coffee from everyone's favorite coffee shop. Is it anyone's favorite coffee shop? Starbucks. My beautiful assistant is gonna read out the questions. I don't know what they are. She's prepared all of the questions. She doesn't want to be on camera yet. Maybe if we get to 100,000, she'll show her face on camera. So
no. Got a face for the radio.
Sarah's gonna read the questions. I'll answer them. Let's go.
If you weren't using Home Assistant, what would you be using for your home automations?
I think if I wasn't using Home Assistant, or if Home Assistant didn't exist, I would probably be using something like HomeKit, probably Apple HomeKit, just for its local control and sort of a bit more private than say some of the others like Amazon's Assistant or Google Assistant. And it does have a lot of good functionality, HomeKit, and it works with a lot of decent products. Like they make sure that everything is compatible and everything works completely well with HomeKit. So that is probably the one I would go with if Home Assistant didn't exist, or if I wasn't able to choose another open source platform like OpenHub or something else like Habitat. So if we just had to stick to the main ones, Apple HomeKit is probably the one I would go for.
It has been a while since your smart home control panel project video. Have you found it useful?
So I think if we're talking about the wall panel video that I did, it is quite useful in terms of just glancing and looking at information. So if you want to see what the temperatures are in certain rooms, and if the heating's working in certain rooms, then it's really good for that. In terms of actual control, I don't use it too often. It's really actually good for like showing the doorbell feed if someone rings the doorbell, or showing the CCTV cameras and things like that. But for actual control, I don't use it too often because we have a lot of automations that run, and it pretty much takes care of 90% of the things we do. We very rarely have to use any sort of control. It's all done through automations.
What is your most complicated automation?
So yeah, in terms of the hardest or the most challenging project, is probably bed sensor, but that is the biggest device that you get the most bang for your buck with, because it's a really cheap project to do, but it also enables you to do so many automations. So every night when we get into bed, it can close the blinds, set the security alarm, turn off all the lights, turn off any TVs or anything else like that that's left on. So that is probably my most complicated automations in terms of the amount of things that it does, and it's just so useful. We use it every day and it comes really in handy. Also, when you get up in the middle of the night, you can help turn on lights in the bathroom and things like that. So yeah, that is probably the most complicated automation in terms of just how many different devices and sensors it can actually control. But also in terms of setup, it was quite awkward to do, especially on our particular bed. Had to crawl underneath it and try and lift it up whilst putting the sensors under the bed itself, and yeah, burnt myself multiple times with a soldering iron doing that project. But yeah, bed sensor is probably the most complicated one.
How did you start the channel? I've tried to start, but I never get past the idea phase. Starting
a channel, everyone says that you will always want to start a YouTube channel and you'll think about doing it for years. I know I certainly did. And you always try and put it off, thinking that the time isn't right, or you need something else. You need some bit of camera equipment, or you need everything to be perfect, and you want your first video to be the most perfect video on YouTube, and it's just never going to happen. You just have to actually commit and just realize that your first videos are not going to be good. No one's ever are. And then just once you get over that, you'll be able to get into it a lot easier. And once you get your first sort of 20, 30, 40 videos done, you'll look back at your first ones and you'll see how massive an improvement, or how massive the progress has been since you first started doing them. We were just watching some of my first videos yesterday, I think it was, and the difference between even video 10 to video 30 is insane, or video 0 to video 30. The progress it's just like a totally different person or a totally different sort of video. So yeah, best advice is to just commit, get started, and then start progressing. Each video you make, just try and make it a little bit better than the one before, and suddenly you'll find that you've made massive strides in making videos.
Would love some Home Assistant videos on pet management, cat flap control, feeder control, etc. That would be cool. Is it something you can do?
Yeah, at the moment we don't have any pets, but it's certainly something that I think would be a fun project to do. Certainly we're hoping to move house at some point soon, so hopefully when we do that they'll have a lot more space. to sort of do bigger projects and do projects like that. There has been quite a few people doing a lot of different pet projects. So I know in our Discord there's been people who have automated chicken coop fences to keep the foxes out and only let chickens in at certain times of night and to feed them and things like that. There's a lot of really crazy projects, and all of the usual stuff like dog flaps and cat flaps and all of these sorts of things, and pet feeders. It's all massive. So yeah, I'd love to do some more of that stuff when we've got a bit more space, more freedom to do that. So yeah, definitely on the radar.
Does that mean we're getting a pet? What have you studied?
Studied?
Why?
So I studied computing at college, just a college level. So I came straight out of school, did all my hires and stuff at school, and then went into college and studied computing, and then just left or finished at college when I was 19 and straight into my first job at the place I work at now. So I started at the very lowest level of IT and now worked my way up to one of the higher positions in our business, and yeah, still work there. That was 9 years ago. So yeah, I didn't do much studying, just all of it came from just pure work experience, which I think for me is certainly a lot more valuable than any of the studying I ever did. I didn't really learn much that was actually practical at any of my higher studies. A lot of it, or all of the knowledge I have, is just from self-taught and just learning and getting experience basically.
How often do you have problems with your smart home? How much time do you spend fixing stuff that doesn't work or broke due to update, power outage, etc.?
Honestly, we very rarely have any problems with smart home, particularly in terms of updates. That never happens for me. Power outages never really happens for me either. The only stuff that ever really been broken, maybe when I've tripped a fuse or something in the cupboard, it goes off for a few minutes or something like that. But other than that, we've never had issues, especially not from updates or from anything just breaking. That never happens for me. In terms of reliability, I think Home Assistant is really reliable if you know what you're doing with it and you know how it's going to react and how it's going to behave. Yeah, super reliable in my opinion.
Only question is wading through Home Assistant after your curfew vid combined with Unify. Is it easy to set weekend, weekday perimeter, i.e. give them longer at weekends?
Yeah, I think that would be a very simple thing to do, is just by using a condition in the automation. So you could either use a condition and have 2 automations set, or if you wanted to combine them into one automation, then you could use the choose action and then figure out if it's a weekday or a weekend, and then just have different actions happen based on that. So yeah, really easy to do that one.
Why don't you share by GIST or GitHub, not some workable configurations that go with the videos you post? For me, that's one of the reasons I sometimes start but don't finish watching your video, as you don't share how it's done. Someone doesn't read your descriptions.
Yeah, I actually did see this one. I'm not sure which video you were referring to, but I share any of the code that I do is always in the description or somewhere in the video for you to copy. I never hide anything. So yeah, check the description. I'm sure you'll find the code that you were looking for.
Did you know that if I view your videos at half speed, it sounds like you just got out of a long night at the pub? It's hysterical. We're gonna try this.
If you're looking for more videos to watch, check out this video over here.
Thanks for bringing something to my life I didn't know I needed.
Thanks for that.
Recount a moment of horror when you realised you missed an automation edge case. Mine was when I thought I had the perfect attached switch set up, until weeks later the lights turned on randomly during a movie. The horror was the idea of debugging the issue.
I don't think I've ever had, never really any big automations that I've sort of missed use cases. The only one I can think of that comes to mind is when I was setting up the home alarm. So we've got a Zigbee keypad and things like that, and obviously different Zigbee motion sensors and Zigbee door sensors. I think the only thing I missed was different use cases of armed away versus armed home. I think I made some slight errors there, and then the different mode was set when we got up in the middle of the night and things like that. But yeah, nothing too major, and it was a relatively easy fix. So never had any real horror stories yet when it comes to different automation use cases, but I can certainly see how that would or could be consideration depending on how advanced you were getting.
He's jinxed you now. What is your favourite simple automation in your house?
I don't know, what's your favourite?
What's simple? The lights. It's always the lights.
Yeah, just motion lights. They're the easiest and simplest ones to do, but they have the most impact, I think, in any smart home. That's a really boring answer though.
Yeah, it is. Let's make it more interesting.
Maybe just the washing machine. The notifications when the washing machine's finished, because I like to send little funny messages in the notifications to let her know that the washing machine's done. So I get a good kick out of that. That's probably my favourite simple automation.
I'm currently running a Pi 3 and we'll be switching end of the month to a Pi 4 8GB with an SSD. Should I reinstall my whole setup manually or just make a clone of the SD card?
I would just simply do a backup of your current setup and just move it or migrate the backups over to your new setup. There's no real need to clone the SD card unless you are really protective over or you think you're going to miss something. I would just use the backups. We've done a complete video on how to actually do that, how to do a full migration from an SD card to an SSD. We'll put the video up here. You just follow that and you should manage no problem.
What's your opinion on Matter and its impact on smart home in general and also for Home Assistant?
So we're going to be doing a video on this as part of an upcoming series that we're going to be doing. So we'll talk about it in way more depth there. But Matter at the moment, we haven't seen too much sort of development of Matter in sort of like the last 2 years or so. I do remain a bit more on the cautious side than maybe some others will, just because of some of the practices and the information that we've been fed before from a lot of these companies saying that Zigbee was the standard that they were all going to follow, and now it just seems to kind of be repeating itself with Matter. But yeah, I remain cautious, but I hope that it does become everything that they want and that what we want for the consumer, and that it does turn into the true sort of standard way that the smart home operates, because that can only benefit all of us as consumers for everything to work together and work or have interoperability. But yeah, I remain on the cautious side, but we are going to talk a bit more about it in an upcoming video. So make sure to stay tuned and check out that video when it comes out.
Is there a way to add a device to Home Assistant with the IP address?
Yeah, sure, you can absolutely do that. The only thing I would say is just be cautious. If you're going to use, sometimes you have to use an IP address. The integration will tell you not to use host names, but if you can use host names, sometimes it's better to do so just in case the IP address of your device does ever change. Then I would suggest using host names if you can. But on the flip side, you can try and use IP address reservations just to make sure it doesn't change. And then yeah, you can absolutely use IP addresses in the config.
It said technology advancements double over 6 months. In your opinion, what comes after IoT?
Read it again?
It said technology advancements double over 6 months. In your opinion, what comes after IoT?
Doubling in 6 months seems a little bit optimistic. I would say it's probably a lot longer than that, at least in terms of what we've seen so far. I mean, look at some of the things like even just the smart home protocols like we were just talking about, like Matter and Thread, which have really seen no development or no real progress, at least that we've seen in the public in what, like 2 years now. So I would say it's a bit longer than 6 months. As for what comes after, in terms of the smart home, I don't know, maybe like robots make our drinks and
your second round, sir.
Follow us around feeding us food and stuff like that. That's the only thing I can think of.
You have watched iRobot, yes?
Yeah, yeah, it could be like that, iRobot.
Oh, hell no.
Right, well, we should have learned our lesson. I see you use a TV as a computer monitor. Isn't it hard to read text?
No, it seems absolutely fine for me so far. I suppose I do quite a lot of reading, but yeah, doesn't seem to be any issues.
What do you think about Sonos Google thing?
The Sonos Google thing, I haven't been following it too closely. It's not something that I'm really that interested in because it's not something I actually use. But as the way I understand it is that Google's been removing features that were once advertised as part of their product. So that's never going to be a good thing for us as consumers, is to have features or be using features that we did have and then suddenly they get removed. That's never a good thing. So hopefully they can figure out a way to get around that or come to some sort of agreement. I'm sure Google will probably appeal the ruling, as they always do. So yeah, I'm not too invested in it because we have things like Home Assistant and stuff that can do all of that functionality already. But yeah, it sucks to see features get removed that a lot of people were using. So that's kind of my stance on it.
Why not have a merch page?
Hopefully we have a lot of plans to do some more stuff over the next year or so, maybe the next couple of years. So yeah, there's a lot of things that we talk about and we want to do. It's just the time and resource while we're trying to do other things as well. I'm sure it's definitely going to happen over time. So yeah, we definitely have plans to do a lot of stuff like that will hopefully be coming to you soon. So yeah, don't worry, it's definitely in the works and definitely something that we want to do.
How to answer my girlfriend. Why do you spend money on this tech which has no value in the next year or so? Sometimes I too wonder why her jewellery is better investment than my tech gear. What's your comment? Happy wife, happy life.
The best way to get around it is just to provide your girlfriend value through the smart home stuff. So for example, like we were talking about earlier, if she forgets to empty the washing machine quite frequently, just use your tech to help her remember to do the washing machine or whatever else it is.
You could just empty the washing machine for her. That's helping.
So yeah, just provide value to her in some way so that she thinks it's useful, and then you can just keep on buying smart home products.
Or just say to her, you get your jewellery, I get my smart home tech.
That's very true as well.
What is your most used automation?
Light. It's always light.
Yeah. How's the bed sensor held up? Does your frame only have 4 legs? Do you imagine any issues if a frame had more for support?
Yeah, that question's cropped up quite a lot on our Discord server. So there is a lot of people with more legs on their bed than 4, for example. What I always say is if you're gonna go and do the bed sensor project, you can just put it on 4 legs of your bed and then maybe like 3D print not fake casters, but like dummy casters for the rest of the legs so that it's all still level, but the bed sensors still work. The thing to remember about the bed sensor is the weight you are given, you shouldn't use it as an accurate way of measuring weight. As long as it's always the same weight that it's given you, then absolutely no problem. You don't need to get the exact measurements from it. Just make sure that it's consistently inaccurate, if that makes sense. So don't worry too much about getting the right weight and things like that. Just try and make it work so that it recognizes when one person's in bed and when 2 people are in bed, and then you're absolutely golden.
iPhone or Android?
For me, it's always been Android. I haven't used an iPhone since like iPhone 5 maybe. I don't think it's as true now, but iOS did used to be a lot more restrictive than it is now. Like you can even access any files or anything like that on it. I don't think it's as bad now. I certainly think it's good for people who just want something that is simple to use, everyone knows how to use it, even though I think Android is really easy to use now as well. So yeah, I like Android, but I see the value of iPhone as well. So
Mark asked, how big is your What backup methods do you think work best for Raspberry Pis? Are you worried about it missing some crucial data you may need if the worst was to happen?
I don't think the backup method for the Raspberry Pi is any different to any other platform. If you're using a VM and stuff like that, you can technically do more backups than you can with the Raspberry Pi, but no, absolutely not. No issues with using the built-in backups in Home Assistant. I think they are perfectly good for 99% of people. I wouldn't be too worried about it missing anything, but as always, you should test your backups. Same with anything, you should always test your backups just to make sure that they do what you hope they are going to do. Just use the built-in backups and you should be absolutely good to go.
Would it be possible to make series of videos on big projects as like security at home with Home Assistant step-by-steps? It'll be very nice and alternated. How do I say it? Alternated. Alternated. Right, let me start this again.
No, that's funny.
Would it be possible to make a series of videos on big projects like security at home with Home Assistant step-by-steps? It'll be very nice, alternated with short all-in-one videos.
Yeah, so like we were speaking about earlier, we are hoping to move house in the not so distant future, and hopefully we'll have a lot more space and a lot more room and time to do a lot of these bigger projects that hopefully can do. Some of the larger projects, they obviously cost a lot of money to do some of them. Yeah, but definitely I want to do a lot more bigger projects. Got a lot of them on the radar to do. So yeah, once we can hopefully move house, we should be able to execute a lot more of those ideas, and we'll make videos about it, of course.
In what ways do you and your partner / family say that your automations improve their lives? Oh, well, the bed sensor is my favourite. As Lewis said, it closes the blinds, turns off the lights, sets the security alarm, which gives me a peace of mind because, as Lewis will tell you, I'm very forgetful. I've got an awful memory. So I don't have to worry about that.
And then just things like the lights, and it's quite bad for turning off lights and remembering to turn off lights, so that saves us a fair bit of hassle. It's funny when we go anywhere else now, we walk into rooms and we're like stood there for like 20 seconds wondering why it's so dark, and it's just forgetting that the lights don't come on themselves when you go to somebody else's house. So
But I think that's why we're awful at forgetting to turn them off.
Yeah, we've definitely got way too comfortable with living here. But yeah, I think it's just all the little things that sort of add up. It's all the little automations you do. Definitely the most simple ones are the ones that give you the biggest impact, I think.
Do you run Home Assistant in a VM on your server or on the Home Assistant Amber?
Yeah, so I run Home Assistant in a VM at the moment. I still play around and use the Home Assistant Yellow, just testing and see how it works and stuff like that. But at the moment, my main one is on a VM just because I have a lot of other stuff that I run as well in VMs, like NAS and Plex and all these other various things that I have, or I need a lot of hard drives for. So yeah, VM's the one I use at the moment.
Are you planning on making more videos about the Sonoff NS panel, i.e. drawing your own content on the screen?
So I was looking at the sort of what the community's done with the NS panel just a few days ago. It seems like there is still a lot of work going on with the NS panel. Still very early days for the NS panel. There's not a lot of videos I want to make right now on it because I haven't seen anything. There is custom UIs out there, but working with the Nextian editor, which is how you make custom UIs for the NS panel and some of the other displays. Working with that bit of software, having tried it myself, is very difficult. It's very hard to learn. And a lot of the UIs out there at the moment just aren't as good as the stock UI that comes with it. So I haven't seen any UIs that I want to make a video on yet. If one does pop up, please send it to me. Yeah, I'd love to make a video about something that looks really good in the future. But until then, no plans for the NS panel at the moment.
Why do you never trim your beard?
No one asked that.
What's a product you wanted to like but just couldn't for a particular reason? And conversely, a product that won you over?
Product I wanted to like was probably the dual lens camera from Reolink. So when I first saw that announced, I don't really get excited about CCTV cameras and stuff because they're just not a very exciting product, but the Reolink dual lens was actually, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, this is so cool. I would love to see one super wide image combined all into one. And then when it arrived, so it's got two lenses in it, but you could only view one lens at a time, and they were separate images and not stitched together. So it was just completely different to how I hoped and what I thought it was going to be like. And it just didn't, that was just a product that didn't really work for me. So that was kind of a letdown for me. In terms of products that I didn't think were going to meet expectations, but ended up, yeah, that was a good one actually. The switchbot curtains worked better than I thought they were going to. I'd tried quite a few times to do like a DIY project of automated curtains, and I think I tried for like, it was like 3 weeks, 3 straight weeks trying to get automated curtains using an ESP, and I could just never get it to work the way I wanted. It was just an absolute nightmare. So yeah, I didn't have high expectations for the switchbot curtains because of the troubles that I'd had, but yeah, they work really well for at least for me. So yeah, they were definitely a product that did exceed expectations, and we still have them connected over here. Yeah, and they worked really well.
Comment if you want to see Lewis's stitch job on the bottom of the curtains. How much open home automation, i.e. Home Assistant Alexa, likes into a UE link? UE link compares to closed solutions, i.e. Control 4, pros and cons. I'm asking this because usually DIY compares different components and forgets DIY should be compared to one-stop shop solution.
How much open source projects compared to closed source projects such as Control 4 and all of those sorts of ones? I don't have any experience with Control 4 or any of those other similar ones like Loxon or those types of ones. They're like proper professional install or commercial solutions. The only thing I will say about solutions like that is that in order to be able to, if you want to add anything to your system in the future, or you want to get rid of something, or you want to change something, as far as I'm aware, you have to contact the installer or a professional and have them come in and do it for you. You cannot touch any part of the system yourself, which to me, the type of person I am, that would be really frustrating. I would hate that, not knowing that I could just do something really simple by myself. That's just, I would that's not a solution for me. I've always been a hands-on person, so yeah, that's the only thing I will say about closed source solutions.
Do you believe Hasio?
That's.io.
Hasio?
Just Home Assistant.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Just read the question again, but say Home Assistant.
Oh. Do you believe Home Assistant is a stable system?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think Home Assistant is a stable solution, as long as you, in terms of like, if you want to install Home Assistant and you have everything set up and then you just leave it, then absolutely, I think it is a stable system. If you're the type of person that likes to install community-made add-ons and community integrations and have tons of custom integrations, everything like that, and you like to do every single update that comes out and you're just constantly tinkering with it every single day, then you will most likely run into some sort of issue, whether it's a minor or a major. And that's not the fault of Home Assistant, that's just the nature of tinkering with something every single day and tinkering with it until your heart's content. But in terms of reliability and stability, if you were to just install it and leave it alone, then yeah, I absolutely do think it is a super reliable solution.
Is there a benefit of running Tasma on devices, even if you're running Home Assistant in the cloud anyway? I have a lot of Tuya and Iwi devices, but because I instantly went for Nabu Casa, I never thought about flashing all of my devices.
Yeah, so even if you're running Home Assistant Cloud, it's not that your Home Assistant is running in the cloud. Obviously, it's still running locally. That's why you have a Raspberry Pi, things like that. So yeah, it's absolutely still worth installing ESP Home or Tasma if you can and if you want to, because you'll still get that benefit of your devices being local and being under your control over sort of say the Tuya devices or anything else that uses cloud firmware. So yeah, I would absolutely say if you want to do it, then yeah, definitely go ahead.
Can DeepStack run on Pi 4 with 2 GB RAM?
DeepStack will not. You probably can run it on a Pi, but you won't get very good performance without some sort of other accelerator like a Jetson or some other graphics accelerator for DeepStack. I wouldn't try and run it on a Pi with only 2 GB of memory. I would say that you will very likely crash or run into issues trying to do that.
How do you figure everything out? There's a lot of half-complete information online.
I am a very sort of technical and a problem-solving minded person. So I work in IT and very technical environment. So problem solving for me, these sorts of things is relatively trivial compared to some of the stuff I do at work. So that's kind of how I've worked, and I just can always just work through stuff and usually 99.9% of the time get something to work if it's possible to get it working. So yeah. And then I just kind of pull all the information together and make the guides for you to hopefully try and make it a little bit easier.
Not to toot your own horn. It would be good to know some of the best switches, sensors, lights, etc. and that work well and are easy to set up in Home Assistant. So what products pretty much work well with Home Assistant?
This question kind of depends on so many variables and sort of what protocols and things like that you're using, but if you're starting completely from scratch, then I'd probably just go for something Zigbee or something Z-Wave, and then use some of the information you can find online to try and work out which devices and sensors. Like a lot of the Aqara sensors devices are really good on the Zigbee side, and then on the Z-Wave side you shouldn't really have any problems with compatibility, because that's the way Z-Wave works, is that everything should work together. So I'd probably, personally go, if you're moving house and you're not doing a new build or things like that where you're going to hardwire, then I would try and go for something Zigbee or Z-Wave, and then just kind of have a look at what the community recommends and go from there.
I'm thinking about adding Frigate NVR to Home Assistant, but I'm a little afraid of overloading my system. I'm running Home Assistant on a Raspberry Pi 4. Do you think I should consider some different hardware?
It depends on how many cameras and how many streams you're going to have coming into Home Assistant, and also how much storage space that you have on your system, and if you're using any accelerator cards like the Google Coral. If you can step up your hardware to something maybe even like an Intel NUC or something like that, then definitely probably recommend it, depending on, again, how many camera streams you're having. If you just want to do like 1, maybe 2 camera streams, or you have a Google Coral and you have plenty of storage, then the Pi should be able to do it. I probably wouldn't maybe go over like 4 or 5 streams, and again, that is assuming that you're using a Google Coral. Don't try and run it on a Pi without using a Coral or something like that, because you'll probably end up with a very bad experience and you'll probably end up crashing your Home Assistant. But if you've got just maybe a couple of streams or a couple of camera streams with a Coral, then you should be okay. If you want to do any more than that, I'd probably step it up to like a NUC or something similar.
How would you automate coffee as part of your wake up automation? Oh, that would be good.
Yeah, we are very big coffee drinkers in this house, so that would be good. But I guess it depends on what type of coffee machine or setup that you have. If it's something with like where you can turn it on, as soon as you turn it on, it starts heating the water and things like that, then a simple smart plug would maybe suffice. And if it's something where you maybe have to like turn it on and press a button, you could maybe use something like a smart plug in combination with like a switch bot, maybe to press the button, something like that may work, and that's quite a popular use case for those switch bot fingers. So yeah, probably go with something like that depending on what sort of setup you have.
What new projects have you done?
New projects, we haven't really done any new sort of projects. We've been really busy filming, making videos, as well as working our day jobs. So that's kind of, we haven't done too many projects. We've got a long list, a very long list of projects that we want to do. Like I was mentioning earlier, hopefully when we move house, we'll be able to do a lot more of those projects. No new projects at the moment, but hopefully a lot more coming up.
That's it. You did quite a few.
We're like 50.
No.
Oh, right, so that must have been like almost 50 questions. I think we did almost 50.
41.
Nearly 50. That's all the coffee done, all the questions done. Thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for subscribing and getting us to 50,000. Remember, if we get to 100,000, my beautiful assistant will make her debut in the next Q&A when we get to 100,000. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. Thank you for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video.